Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to session number 40 of our course on organization theory and design. And we are discussing the issue of conflict and politics in organizations. And in the last session we saw that conflict arises because of 4 or 5 conditions which we discussed as preconditions, and also the sources of conflict in the shape of goal incompatibilities, in the shape of differentiation of departments, in the shape of task interdependence, and the scarcity of resources. These 4 conditions create a pressure which can result in tension among the departments and conflicts among the departments. And we also discussed that in certain organizations these conflicts are more bound to occur as compared to certain other organizations, and the differences, the reason why conflict varies from organization to organization is the reason that the context of organization changes. From when we move from one organization to the other, the design, the context, the technology, the environment of the organization, and the way they work, whether they work organically or mechanistically, that changes. So with that, the chances that the conflict will occur or not occur will also change. That brings us to another important issue, another important phenomena which we observe in the organizations, and that is the phenomena of power, the organizational power. And when we talk about power, we need to understand that there is a difference between individual and organizational power. The term power itself is the ability of one person or a department in any organization to influence other person or department to bring about desired outcomes. Now, if we look closely at this definition, we will see that power is used here not to build one's own power base, but to bring desired outcomes to the department or to the organization. So the purpose of the organizational power is to bring about desired outcomes and results for the organization, and not to use that power for personal advantage. That needs to be clarified at the outset. Having said that, the concept of power is very closely related with authority, and authority has 3 elements to it, or 3 attributes to it. Number 1 is that authority is vested in organizational positions. A person sitting as a marketing director has obviously much more authority than a marketing executive. A marketing manager has a more authority than marketing executive, but less authority than a marketing director, who has less authority than the managing director, who has less authority than the chairman of the board of governors. So authority is vested in organizational positions. It is accepted by subordinates. Authority mein, the chances are that if your boss has asked you to do something, you will do it as a sense of obligation, as a sense of responsibility, because your boss has said it, and your boss has authority over you. He has the muscle over you to ask you to engage in a particular work, which benefits the organization. That assumption will always be kept in mind, because no manager has, or no director has, the authority to give work to someone or to use someone's time for his own personal gains. Everything which we are discussing for the sake of organizations. And power, authority, politics, all the concepts which we will discuss and which we have been discussing, the objective is that they bring betterment to the organization. The third element, or the third attribute of authority, is that it flows down vertically through hierarchy. जितने आप top level पे हैं hierarchy में, उतनी आपकी authority ज़्यादा है, and it will flow down. The managing director, if he wants to communicate to a junior executive in marketing department, the authority of that order will flow down from marketing director, down the hierarchy, manager, assistant manager, or whatever is present in between to that marketing executive. Power, on the other hand, is a broader notion or is a broader concept than authority alone. Now, to understand why some people in organizations have more power than others, we need to understand that managers or people working in organizations, generally the empirical research has shown that they have 5 sources of power. And the students of management will be very familiar with those 5 sources of power. But in order to recap and in order to bring your focus on this issue of power, we'll need to spend some time in discussing what are those 5 sources of power and why do they provide power to individuals. The first source of power, which is discussed in the literature, is called the legitimate source of power. Legitimacy. The very reason that you are a marketing manager gives you a legitimate power to act. So that is closely related with the power coming from authority. If you walk in any organization and you start telling them that you should not behave with customers like this, or you should arrange your workflow on these patterns, nobody will listen to you because you do not have any legitimate authority to direct or to guide the subordinates. So legitimacy is a must, and legitimate power is coming from those people who are selected by a process which the organization has chosen for recruitment, which are appointed there legitimately, and those people who are technically qualified to hold that job, they have a legitimate power and authority. That particular job provides them with that. चाहे वो principal की job, which gives them a vast authority over the faculty member, over the students, over the policies and procedures of the college or a school, or a dean of a university, or director of a company. These are all legitimate powers which that particular person is using because that power is given to him through his job responsibilities, through his job scope, through his job description. That particular person has got a legitimate power to do what he is doing. So that is one source. The other source, which is probably in terms of emotions more crucial and more relevant for people, is the power of reward. Those people in organizations will have more power who can give reward to people. Means people who can appraise you and can promote you or can suggest a raise in your salary, or who control the rewards, the extrinsic and intrinsic, both forms of rewards, they will have more power. Because people will know that if we are not in the good books of this person, or if we are not working according to the demands and expectations of this particular individual, then he or she has a legitimate right to decrease the quantity of our reward. And that is a strong stimulus. That is a strong behavioral stimulus which corrects individuals, and they try to adopt their way of working, and they try to adopt their dealings according to the departmental or the personal authority who is giving the reward. Reward के साथ साथ एक और चीज जो attached है, that is the concept of punishment. Not giving a reward is a form of punishment, but punishment could be more severe than that. It could be a demotion, it could be a decrease in salary, or it could be a decrease in benefits, or decrease in job responsibilities. That sort of power which a person has through which he or she can punish others in the organization is the coercive source of power. Coercion जो word हम use करते हैं, which means the ability to coerce people. वैसे politically जब हम sense में generally use करते हैं तो the word is quite negative, but here it is meant to be used as a person who can punish you if you are not working according to a departmental or organizational plans or strategies. जिस शख्स के पास भी ये पनिश करने की पावर होगी, he will have power in the organizations. Imagine a government school, क्योंकि mostly government schools में हमारे अभी भी culture है that teachers physically beat the students. So that ability of or the power of the teacher that he can inflict physical punishment on the students give him a power of coercion. Students डरते हैं ऐसे टीचर से जो मारते हैं उनको, चाहे वो जितने भी ईमानदार हैं, स्ट्रिक्ट हैं, अच्छे हैं पढ़ाने में, वो अपनी जगह हैं उनकी क्वालिटीज, बट दैट दिस पर्सन ऑल्सो बीट्स और ही कैन बीट badly or he has a history of beating people, the students will be on guard. इनकी क्लास में शोर नहीं करना है, इनकी क्लास में खामोश रहना है, या इनकी क्लास में होमवर्क पूरा करके आना है. I am not justifying the coercion as a source of power, but this is what happens. Why people are afraid of police? अगर खुदा न खासा किसी के घर में रात 2 बजे नॉक हो and he opens the door and he finds police on the doorstep, he will not be pleasantly surprised. He will be shocked to see police, because police has coercive powers in their hands. They can punish us, they can arrest us, they can coerce us. So ये जो powers हैं, इनकी behavioral reasons हैं, जिनकी वजह से law abiding behavior लोगों में आता है, organizational citizenship behavior है. These are all revolving around the concepts of who gives rewards and who gives punishments and who can give reward and who can give punishment. The fourth source of power is more softer and less definable or less quantifiable, and that is what is termed as expert power. Expert power organization में उन लोगों को होती है, as the name suggests, who have some very rare expertise which other peoples don't have. For example, you can have a teacher in a university who has extensive background of teaching, consulting, academic research, management consulting, case writing. Now this person is an expert as a teacher because he has all the facets required for a university teacher. जितने ज़्यादा ये facets उनमें नुमायाँ होंगे, उतनी उनकी expert power ज़्यादा होगी. A person who is expert in, for example, who's good in quantitatives, is good in using the statistical packages, has a power over others, expert power, because other people will either depend on this person for learning the statistical package, or they will depend on this person for giving them advice on how to interpret the data. So ये भी एक source of power, और ये important source of power है professional institutions में. Legitimate reward coercion तो हर organization में important sources हैं, but if we look at the various forms of organizations, machine bureaucracy and a professional bureaucracy and a simple organization, ad hocratic organization, उसमें हम देखते हैं कि जो professional organization है, वहाँ expert power की बहुत value. Imagine a hospital where there is a consultant who is a pediatric cardiac surgeon. यानी बच्चों की cardiac surgery, बच्चों की दिल की surgery करने के वो expert हैं. But this particular expertise gives him an immense power because he is heading a department where the demand is huge. बहुत से बच्चे हैं congenital heart disease के साथ हमारी country में पैदा होते हैं. They need corrective surgeries in very early life, and doing a corrective surgery, a heart corrective surgery in early life is not easy. ये हर एक के बस का रोग तो नहीं है. So a person who is expert in it will enjoy expert power in that organization. And similarly, जैसे मैंने आपको टीचर की एग्जांपल दी, या कोई बहुत ज़्यादा एक्सपर्ट मशीन ऑपरेटर है प्रोडक्शन में, that machine operator will have power over others because he works quicker, he can guide other people, he can teach other people, he has that aura of power around him because of his expertise, because he has sharpened and honed his skills much more than what others have done. And the final source of power is called the referent power, which is even more fluid and more qualitative than the expert power. Referent power में ये है, it is like a transformational leader where people want to become like you. You might have legitimate and reward coercive or expert power, but because of your behavior, because of your character, because of your conduct, because of your values, because of your track record, people want to become like you, and you are presented as a reference, or you are presented as an example in that organization. So ये जो referent power है, ये भी एक important, crucial source of power. So 5 sources of power, and people have various combinations of these power sources in them. Someone can be very high on legitimate and reward and coercive power, but low on expert and referent power, or the vice versa. Or somebody can have all the 5 elements in him or her, or someone may have very few shades of all of these elements. तो जितने ज़्यादा ये elements होंगे और जितने इनके shades गहरे होंगे, उतनी ही उन सब के पास power ज़्यादा होगी. Organizational power. So organizational power is actually contained in the structure of the organization, like authority, and is vested in positions, not in persons. Ideally, a person does not have power in organization, but his position has power. His position has straight away a power of authority, which is the power of legitimacy. And if he is a departmental head, then he can reward, he can punish. And then the other 2 powers, the expert and the reference, will depend on the background, the experience, the personality, the leadership style, the cognitive knowledge, the emotional intelligence of that person. So power, again I'll repeat the definition, is the ability of a person or department in an organization to influence other people to bring about desired organizational outcomes. Power is a very closely related concept again with what we have discussed in the last session, conflicts. And the resolution of conflicts and the use of power, rational तरीके से आप power use कर रहे हैं या political तरीके से power use कर रहे हैं, that will depend on whether the conflict in the organization is low inherently or whether it is inherently high. So आपकी ये जो power organization ने आपको दी है, that will also give you the power to dissolve and resolve the conflicts by using various frameworks depending on the overall design and depending upon the overall objectives and strategies of the company. Now, power के हमने एक तो sources आपको बयान किए जो कि purely आपके function के ऊपर dependent हैं, आपकी skills के ऊपर dependent हैं, आपकी authority के ऊपर dependent हैं. And in the last session, I also discussed that conflict के vertical और horizontal sources होते हैं. बिल्कुल वैसे ही power के भी vertical और horizontal sources हैं. Like vertical sources of power, the first thing which provides individual a vertical source of power is their formal position. Imagine a managing director of a group of companies or a chairman of a group of companies sitting on the top has vertically the highest source of formal power with him because he is the overall decision maker. Or a production manager, as far as a plant or a production department is concerned, has a formal position in that department which gives him power. When we compare that position with the managing director or chairman, it is less power, but power is a relative position, it is a relative phenomenon. A chairman of a group of companies with a revenue of 2 billion will have less power than a chairman of a company, a group of companies with an annual revenue of, say, 10 billion. So, companies ke andar bhi and outside the companies within industry, this formal position will be a large determinant of how much power an individual has in the organization. And the second important thing is how much control that person has over the distribution of resources. Because time and again we have said that resources are limited. दुनिया में कोई भी ऐसी कंपनी नहीं, दुनिया में कोई भी ऐसा शख्स नहीं जो ये क्लेम कर सके that he or she has unlimited resources. We cannot make this claim because हमारी तो life ही limited है. The biggest resource which we have in this world is our life, the time which we spend living. So that time is limited. So we are constrained by the very nature of human life, that we come in this world with a limited time tag on us. Someone comes with a tag of 70 years, someone comes with a tag of 40 years, vary करता है. So यही टाइम हमारे पास लिमिटेड है. कंपनीज के अंदर भी ये टाइम लिमिटेड होता है. You have 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week, and companies don't work 24 hours, 7 days a week, they work 5 days a week and 8 to 9 hours a day, और जो टॉप पे लोग हैं maybe 10-12 hours a day. So again, this is a limitation. और टाइम के अलावा बाकी जो रिसोर्सेज हैं, फाइनेंसेस हैं या फिजिकल रिसोर्सेज हैं या आपके इंफॉर्मेशनल रिसोर्सेज हैं, वो भी सब के सब लिमिटेड. Nobody can claim to have access to unlimited financial resources or access to unlimited physical resources. Plants, machineries, equipment, office equipment, cars, vehicles, organization के resources हैं, इनको replace करने के लिए capital is required, which is again a limited resource. So any person who has some power of distributing or allocating these resources within organization will have more power. Because the people who are down below, the subordinates and the other managers, they know that if they can have more chunk of resources, then they can consolidate their position more in the organization. Therefore, they will look for more resources from that person who has the power and the authority to provide them with those resources. Like a general in the army might not fight the battle in the battlefield, he is sitting behind in the control rooms, but he is deciding what resource to send and where to send it. कहाँ पर कितनी डिवीजन फौज भेजनी है या कहाँ पर आपने साथ एयर सप्लाईज भी देनी है, कहाँ पर लॉजिस्टिक्स को किस तरह मैनेज करना है, ये सब का सब is done by people who are not fighting the battle but who are behind the scenes, but they are controlling the resources. And that is why they have higher ranks, and that is why they are promoted, because of this ability to have managerial control of a battlefield in the forms of better management of the logistics. And the third vertical source of power in the organization is the control of decision premises, which is closely linked with authority and formal position. If a person is in a formal position to decide, if he is a decision maker, then he will have more power, because people will depend, decision making के through ही तो वो allocate करेंगे resources को. Decision making power उनके पास होगी तो लोगों को reward कर सकेंगे या punish कर सकेंगे. Decision making power उनके पास होगी तो वो लोगों को career growth में या resource allocation में help कर सकेंगे. So control of decision premises is crucial, because if a person does not have the control on decision premises. If he cannot make decisions on his own, then he is dependent on someone else for making decisions, and the person on whom he is dependent, then he has the real source of power because he is making the decisions. आपने अक्सर सुना होगा कि फलां assembly या फलां prime minister is only a rubber stamp. Why people say it? Because they understand that the real source of power is somewhere else. And the person who is acting as a chief executive or acting as a prime minister or whatever capacity is only signing orders given by someone else. So decision-making authority lies with the person who has the power to make the decisions. चाहे वो उस पे साइन करें या ना करें. So signing authority is not important. वो rubber stamp हो सकती है if that authority is not the actual decision-making authority. And the fourth vertical source of power is called the network centrality. Network centrality का मतलब ये है that you are centrally located in the organization and you have the access to information and people that are critical to the success of organization. इस पे हम थोड़ा सा बहस करेंगे because that needs to be understood. Why certain people have centrality and why certain people do not have centrality, जबकि उनकी experience, उनकी jobs, उनकी salaries, उनकी positions एक जैसी. Now imagine a university. University में हर organization में कुछ जैसे हम पढ़ चुके हैं जनरल मैनेजमेंट में भी और हम थ्योरी एंड डिज़ाइन में भी बात कर चुके हैं, especially when we were talking about the variables, structure variables, that every organization has a technical core and a support core around it. Technical core में वो लोग शामिल हैं who are converting the inputs into outputs or who are generating the real product of the company. जैसे एक यूनिवर्सिटी है, एक यूनिवर्सिटी में एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन डिपार्टमेंट भी है, फाइनेंस का डिपार्टमेंट भी है, एचआर का डिपार्टमेंट भी है, बट द रियल पीपल, द रियल प्लेयर्स, द रियल एक्टर्स जिनकी वजह से उस यूनिवर्सिटी का नाम है या नहीं है, दे आर फैकल्टी मेंबर्स. People don't send their children to a university because it has an excellent administration department or because it has an excellent parking facility or because it has excellent cafeterias or because it has excellent lawns. ये secondary चीज़ें important हैं but secondary level पे important है. The first thing which a parent will ask himself is, I am sending my child to a university, यहाँ पर पढ़ाने वाले लोग कौन हैं? If they are qualified, if they have names, well respected name in the academic world, if उनमें से ज़्यादातर के पास PhD है, people sitting in the capacity of departmental heads, research में involved हैं, then the parents will feel comfortable in sending their children there because they know that they will be in direct contact with the faculty. बाद में फिर ये चीज़ सामने आएगी कि यूनिवर्सिटी के सिस्टम भी अच्छे होने चाहिए. Once they are satisfied with the faculty, then they will start looking around कि देखें आपकी यूनिवर्सिटी में देर बहुत लगती है फलां चीज़ होने में, ट्रांसक्रिप्ट बनने में या रिजल्ट आने में. Those things will come later. But the primary actors in an organization are यूनिवर्सिटी में faculty members. So they are the people जिनकी network centrality है because they are centrally located in that organization. They are the bread and butter of that organization because they are providing the organization with revenues. Student admissions generates revenues and those revenues are not coming from the building of that university or from the area of that university. They are coming from the faculty of that university because faculty is the core which is creating value to the students, not the systems of the university. इसी तरह एक हॉस्पिटल है, एक हॉस्पिटल में Again, you can have administration department, medical superintendent, administrators, accountants, HR people, IT people, and then you have the doctors, then you have the paramedics, nurses. Network centrality के point of view से paramedics, nurses, doctors, they are the ones who are centrally located in a hospital because they are the ones who are treating the patient. जब खुदा न खास्ता कोई घर में बीमार होता है, हम अस्पताल लेके जाते हैं उन्हें, हम सबसे पहले किसके पास जाते हैं? We straight away try to find a doctor, or we try to find someone who can give our relative assistance, medical aid or medical assistance. We don't go to their finance department. We don't go to their HR department. We don't go to their horticulture department. We don't go to their laundries or cafeterias. वो बाद में जाते हैं. Once the patient is stable, admitted, then you'll start noticing कि अच्छा इस कैफे कैसी है हॉस्पिटल की, उसमें क्या क्या मिलता है, क्या नहीं मिलता. और your first prime contact is with the doctor who is treating your patient. So from a network centrality point of view, the most important people in hospital are doctors. Airlines, again, they have many departments, but as passengers, we are वहाँ पर network centrality में हम pilot who is running the plane is not a central position for a passenger. We are not concerned who is flying the plane. We are concerned with what sort of services are we getting, whether the plane is in time or not. So वहाँ पर जो network centrality है वो customer service and customer care. Hotels में we are not concerned with who owns this hotel. We are concerned with what sort of facilities are we getting. If the hotel claims that it is a 5-star hotel, are we getting 5-star facilities? So over there, the people who are concerned with providing you the service, they are the central people. चाहे वो housekeeping के हैं, चाहे वो catering department से हैं, चाहे वो reception department से. होटल ज़रा मुख्तलिफ हैं क्योंकि वहाँ पर नेटवर्क सेंट्रलिटी बहुत से लोगों की, लेकिन अकाउंट्स डिपार्टमेंट की, एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन की, HR की इतनी ज़्यादा नेटवर्क सेंट्रलिटी वहाँ पर नहीं. आर्मी, नेटवर्क सेंट्रलिटी, fine. It is with those people who are going to be involved in the combats. लेकिन combat situation तो कभी कभार होती. Generally, army में the network centrality will be around administration and discipline. So over there, the ranks, the authorities, these things will be more important. So depending on the organization, आपकी access किस किस्म की information पे है और आपकी access कौन से लोगों पे है, that will provide you the network centrality along with the nature of your work. For example, मैंने paramedics की बात की थी hospitals में, उनकी network centrality इसलिए ज़्यादा है because they have a direct access to doctors. A nurse working in an operating theater has a direct access to the surgeon who is operating as compared to the medical superintendent who is far senior to that nurse in every aspect, but who is sitting in his office when the operation is taking place while the nurse is assisting the surgeon. So from relatives' point of view, from the patient's relatives' point of view, that nurse has a much more network centrality as compared to the administrators and the medical superintendents. So ये चीज़ें हमें बताती हैं कि vertical sources of power में probably the most important is apart from formal position and your ability to distribute resources, the most important which you can create for yourself, क्योंकि network centrality में आपकी अपनी skills involved है. एक तो ठीक है आपकी जॉब, अगर आप अस्पताल में हैं और आप IT में काम कर रहे हैं तो नेटवर्क सेंट्रलिटी आपकी इतनी नहीं बनेगी, लेकिन अगर आप IT के फंक्शंस को डॉक्टरों के साथ मिल के कुछ इस अंदाज से पेश करते हैं कि पेशेंट केयर पे उसका फ़र्क पड़ना शुरू हो जाएगा, तो आपकी नेटवर्क सेंट्रलिटी बढ़ जाएगी. बिकॉज नाउ यू हैव एक्सेस टू दोज पीपल who are important in that organization. Similarly, you can be again in administration or in some other capacity in a university, but if you have done something or if you have developed a skill which has given you a close proximity to the people who are central in that university, again your centrality or your prominence or your visibility will increase. So visibility is not only because of positions and your ability to distribute resources, but it is also highly dependent on what sort of people and information you are connected with. So a chief executive has a network centrality because he has access to information. He has access to anyone in the organization. A person who is sitting on the reception of a hotel has a network centrality because he is interacting with all the guests who come in the hotel. So vertical sources of power में network centrality का concept जो है इसको ज़हन में रखिए, because that is something which you can control, which through developing more skills, through developing more exposure, and through developing more knowledge about who is important in the organization, who are the people which are important in the organization, and what is the information or what sort of a knowledge is important for that particular organization. और जितनी आपकी एक्सेस उस इंफॉर्मेशन और नॉलेज को होगी उतनी ही ज़्यादा आपकी सेंट्रलिटी या विजिबिलिटी ज़्यादा होगी और उतनी ही आपकी वर्टिकल सोर्स ऑफ पावर ज़्यादा होगा. After discussing the vertical sources of power, we will spend some time in talking about the horizontal sources of power. Horizontal sources of power are difficult to measure. They're not as easy to measure or imagine or envision as vertical sources are, because vertical sources where we can identify easily the formal positions, the authorities, and through them the resource allocation capabilities of an individual. But horizontal sources of power हमें charts पे तो बराबर के नज़र आ रहे हैं. Marketing manager, finance manager, IT manager, production manager and services manager. अब इनमें से किसी की भी पावर ज़्यादा हो सकती है, but it will not be visible on the organizational chart. पहली चीज़ तो ये कि it is difficult to measure because power differentials are not defined on the organizational chart, whereas vertical power differentials are straight away defined by the organizational chart. Marketing manager controlling span of control 25 people. Straight away you know that this person has power. But जब आप horizontally देखते हैं managers को और नीचे आप span of control नहीं देख रहे तो आपको नहीं पता चलेगा which manager has what sort of power, and even the span of control will not tell you exactly that this person has power because वो तो उनके subordinates. The chart is telling you where this person is reporting to, but horizontally you don't know what sort of networks he enters into, what sorts of off the record network or off the record skills he has developed. ये चीज़ आपको चार्ट से नजर नहीं आएगी. Second thing is that horizontal power is strategically placed departments में आपको मिलेगी. Again, what are strategically placed departments in an organization? Departments तो वही IT है, finance है, production है, accounts हैं, HR है, marketing है, sales है, production, या legal department है, कहीं पर academics हैं. कितने ज़्यादा ये departments strategically placed हैं, it will depend on the nature of the business of that organization. For example, in a bank, the legal department is strategically placed department because it is concerned with recoveries. So अगर आप बैंक में एक legal department को strengthen नहीं करते तो आप अपने एक strategically placed department को weak कर रहे हैं. Because this legal department has the authority to recover your bad debts. Your sales can't do it. Your sales team can go to people and convince them कि आप ये product ले लें, ये product ले लें, लेकिन वो ये नहीं कह सकते कि आप defaulter हैं, आप recovery के लिए पेश हुई या recover करें amount. Only people who are working in the legal department, they can do that. So, in a bank, legal departments will be strategic departments. Similarly, in a consumer product company, which is selling commodity, sales department will be strategically important because marketing का तो कोई फायदा नहीं है इतना उसमें, प्रोडक्शन तो चल ही रही. सेल्स पे अब आपने अपने एरिया को, अपनी मार्केट शेयर को फैलाना है, आपके सेल्समैन कितना ज्यादा उस प्रोडक्ट को फैला सकते हैं. So production and sales will become both strategically important in a commodity production. Whereas for a differentiated product production, कार की हम बात कर रहे हैं या किसी और differentiated product की हम बात कर रहे हैं, वहाँ marketing will become strategically placed because marketing is creating that pull for the customer which is forcing him to come to the retail or outlet and ask for your brand. Commodities में तो brand नहीं, commodity में तो retailer is probably pushing your brand or probably nobody is pushing your brand and you are just buying a pack of matches because it is there. वहाँ पर आपकी distribution important हो जाती है, अब कहाँ पर मौजूद है. लेकिन so strategic importance आपकी production को और distribution को चली जाती है in the case of commodities, but when we are talking about differentiated products, वहाँ marketing is what is creating brand equity. And brand equity is what is forcing people to ask for your brand. So, in that sort of environment and that sort of companies, marketing will have a strategically important place. And people working in marketing will have more power, a strategic level of power. और इसी तरह जैसे मैंने पहले भी एग्जांपल दी, यूनिवर्सिटी में वहाँ पे तमाम डिपार्टमेंट मौजूद हैं, लेकिन एकेडमिक्स का जो डिपार्टमेंट होगा उसकी स्ट्रेटेजिक इंपॉर्टेंस होगी बिकॉज दैट डिपार्टमेंट इज कन्वर्टिंग योर इनपुट्स इनटू आउटपुट्स. जो कैपेबिलिटीज और कॉम्पिटेंसीज हैं जिनसे आप अपना कंपेटिटिव एडवांटेज क्रिएट कर रहे हैं, वो आपको इन केस ऑफ यूनिवर्सिटी यू विल फाइंड इट इन एकेडमिक्स. इन केस ऑफ अ differentiated product producing company, it will be in the marketing department because marketing is which is using their capabilities and competencies to create your brand equity. No doubt production and other departments are playing their part, but we are talking about the most prominent and most important department. So horizontally हम चार्ट पे तो शायद नहीं देख सकते which department is more important than the other, but when we look at an organization and its functions and its products and its services and its target market. So when we look at an organization in the entirety, then we can see which department is more strategically important than others, and that department which is strategically placed will have more horizontal power than the other departments. That is an important thing, a concept which we need to understand when we are talking about the vertical and horizontal sources of power. The departmental power will also rest on characteristics like dependency, financial resources and centrality. एक तो हमने कहा कि स्ट्रेटेजिक इंपॉर्टेंस है, अस्पतालों में जाहिर है ऑपरेशन थिएटर्स की, लेबर रूम्स की, इंडोर्स की, आउटडोर्स की स्ट्रेटेजिक इंपॉर्टेंस. यूनिवर्सिटीज़ में एकेडमिक डिपार्टमेंट्स की स्ट्रेटेजिक इंपॉर्टेंस है. लेकिन ऑन टॉप ऑफ इट द डिपार्टमेंटल पावर विल फर्दर रेस्ट ऑन सम अदर कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स, और वो अदर कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स जिनकी हम बात कर रहे हैं उनमें हमने पहला कहा डिपेंडेंसी. डिपेंडेंसी मीन्स बाकी के जो डिपार्टमेंट हैं वो कितना डिपेंडेंट है आपके डिपार्टमेंट पे फॉर देयर वर्क. ऑब्वियसली अगर आप फिर अस्पताल की हम एग्जांपल लेते हैं, again the Department of Medicine has power because other departments, the subspecialties like cardiology, psychiatry, skin, dermatology, they are under the cover of medicine. General surgery और फिर सब स्पेशलिटीज हैं सर्जरी के अंदर. सो आपका जो जनरल सर्जरी का डिपार्टमेंट है और द चीफ सर्जन ऑफ द हॉस्पिटल विल हैव a power because all the other surgeries are dependent on him for not technical reasons. That orthopedic surgeon is not dependent on a general surgeon. but he is perhaps dependent on him when it comes to allocation of resources if that general surgeon is the chief of surgery. So dependency plays its part, and also the financial resources. जिस डिपार्टमेंट के पास ज़्यादा फाइनेंशियल मसल्स हैं, ज़्यादा फाइनेंशियल रिसोर्सेज हैं, या ज़्यादा कैपेबिलिटी है फाइनेंशियल रिसोर्सेज को एलोकेट करने की या डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करने की, अगेन दैट डिपार्टमेंट विल बी मोर पावरफुल. सेंट्रलिटी को हम ऑलरेडी डिस्कस कर चुके हैं. बिकॉज ऑफ अ पर्टिकुलर सिचुएशन, वर्किंग कंडीशंस, one or two departments will stand out, and those departments will have a central position in that company. In a very organic company, learning organization, an R&D department can be the most important department, can be the most central department, because it is around R&D that the concept of idea generation and innovation is placed, and innovation and idea generation might be the chief comparative advantages and the chief working values of that company. And in that case, R&D will assume the role of centrality. And another character on which the horizontal source of power of a department will depend is non-substitutability. आप उस डिपार्टमेंट के काम को सब्स्टिट्यूट नहीं कर सकते. ये आप नहीं कर सकते कि फाइन आज अकाउंटेंट साहब नहीं आए, या अकाउंट्स डिपार्टमेंट के काम को आप आउटसोर्स भी कर सकते हैं, लेकिन एक अस्पताल में होती हुई सर्जरी को आप आउटसोर्स नहीं कर सकेंगे. वर्चुअल सेटअप बना के यू कैन आउटसोर्स द टीचिंग पार्ट, बट दोज टीचर्स विल बी अंडर योर कंट्रोल. दोज टीचर्स विल बी अंडर योर रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशन. The course outlines which they will make will be subject to the decisions taken by the management of that particular university. So non-substitutability in the case of a resource person or in the case of a faculty member, uski hum clearly example de sakte hain that if somebody has worked and has accumulated competencies and capabilities, वो competencies and capabilities non-substitutable. और अगर एक डिपार्टमेंट में बहुत से लोग ऐसे हैं जिनके पास capabilities और competencies हैं which they have accumulated over the years, then the power of that department is going to increase, because we cannot substitute those people. We cannot substitute anyone, but especially those who have got capabilities and competencies in them. And another factor which will provide further source of horizontal power to a department is its ability to cope with uncertainty. Because environment can be turbulent, can be uncertain, especially in this era of information revolution, in this era of globalization. Uncertainty is a constant. I mean, that is something which we know will stay for some time. So those departments or those groups which can cope better with the uncertainty through, maybe because of their skills, because of their experience, because of their departmental structures, because of their non-routine technologies, whatever reason, if they can cope better with uncertainty, then those departments will also have more horizontal power as compared to other departments which can not cope with uncertainty to that extent. So in this session, we have discussed the issue of power. Politics पे बात हम next session में भी करेंगे. Last session में भी we touched about the political model of behavioral management. But this session we specifically talked about the sources of power which individuals and which departments have in an organization. Because if somebody says that power does not play its part in organization, that is wrong to say. Research has shown that 20 to 25% of the organizational activities occur around the issues of power and politics. So अगर एक चौथाई या उससे भी ज़्यादा की organizational activities का महवर power और politics है, we cannot ignore power and politics. It is one of the pillars of organizations. बाकी तीन pillars में HR को कहा जाता है, स्ट्रक्चर को एक पिलर कहा जाता है, कुछ लोग स्ट्रेटजी को कह देते हैं, कुछ लोग कल्चर को कहते हैं, लेकिन पावर एंड पॉलिटिक्स इज डेफिनेटली ए पिलर ऑफ द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. एंड हाउ वेल दैट पिलर इज यूटिलाइज्ड, दैट क्रिएट्स, will either create or will not create conducive environment, conducive culture and competitive advantage for that particular company. Therefore, the issue of power is not only to solve and resolve the conflicts occurring in the organization, but it is also important to understand who are the people who have got the power basis, so that coming close to those people will increase your visibility in organization. And you can come close to those people not through personal contacts. Again and again I'll say that I'm not preaching you to come close to them by building personal contacts with them, because it will not help. Come close to them through your work, so that you learn from them, so that you get a chance to work under them, so that they get a chance to look at your potential. Otherwise you will be unnoticed. तो इसलिए जैसे क्रिकेट की टीम्स में जब अंडर 19 या अंडर 17 के कैंप्स लगते हैं, जिसमें बच्चे जाके नेट्स पे अपना आप दिखाते हैं सिलेक्टर्स को, क्यों दिखाते हैं? बिकॉज दे नीड टू बी विजिबल सो दैट द पीपल हु हैव रियल पावर कैन लुक एट देम. इसलिए दैट दे कैन लुक एट देम, कैन सिलेक्ट देम, देन कैन ट्रेन देम फर्दर टू बिकम पार्ट ऑफ द अंडर 19 टीम एंड इवेंचुअली मे बी play for the national side. So coming close to people who have power is important, not only in terms of diplomacy, but in terms of our own growth. Because if we are away from the important people, and if we are away from the important sources of information in the organization, then we are away from the re-election. And if we are away from the re-election, then we cannot be centrally located in an organization. फिर हमारी visibility इतनी नहीं होगी, फिर हमारी substitutability easy होगी, then people can easily substitute us. So जितनी हमारी skills multiple होंगी, हमारे access होगी to important people, हमारी access होगी to important information, हम dependency create कर सकेंगे अपने department के ऊपर दूसरों की, उतनी ही ज़्यादा हमारी horizontal power department की बढ़ेगी. And when I am saying हमारी horizontal power, that does not mean the power of one individual, but that means the power of the department. Because if individuals start indulging in power building games, then the organization will become an akhada of politics only, nothing else. But we are talking about that power which is part of our life, that power which we concede to our parents, that power which we concede to a policeman, that power which we concede to somebody who is senior to us. So with that, we will close this discussion on politics, power and conflicts, and we'll see you inshallah in the next session. Till then, it is Khuda Hafiz.